rain. He lay down on the bed and waited. At the least sound he started, thinking it might be the call from the governess. But the few sounds he did hear always resolved themselves into the moaning of the wind, and no voice came. With his eyes on the open window, trying to pierce the gloom and find the stars, he lay motionless for hours, while the night wore on and the shadows deepened. And during those long hours of darkness and silence he was conscious that a change was going on within him. Name it he could not, but somehow it made him feel that living people like himself were standing near him, trying to speak, beckoning, anxious to bring him into their own particular world. The darkness was so great that he could see only the square outline of the open window, but he felt sure that any sudden flash of light would have revealed a group of persons round his bed, with arms outstretched, trying to reach him. The emotion they roused in him was not fear, for he felt sure they were kind and eager only to help him, and the more he realized their presence, the less he thought about the governess, who had been doing so much to make his escape possible. Then, too, voices began to sound somewhere in the air, and he could not tell whether they were actually in the room, or outside in the night, or even within himself, in his own head. Strange, faint voices, whispering, laughing, shouting, crying. Fragments of stories, rhymes, riddles, odd names of people and places jostled one another with varying degrees of clearness, now loud, now soft, till he wondered what it all meant, and longed for the light to come. And besides all this, something else too was abroad that night, something he could not name, or even think about without shaking with terror down to the very roots of his being. And when he thought of this, his heart called loudly for the governess, and the people hidden in the shadows of the room seemed quite useless and unable to help. Thus he hovered between the two worlds and the two memories, phantoms and realities shifting and changing places every few minutes. A little light would have saved him much suffering. If only the moon were up. Moonlight would have made all the difference. Even a moon half hidden would have put the shadows farther away from him. "Dear old misty moon," he cried half aloud to himself on the bed, "why aren't you here tonight, my last night?" Misty moon, misty moon. The words kept ringing in his ear. Misty moon, misty moon. They swam around in his blood in an odd tumultuous rhythm. Every time the current of blood passed through his brain in the course of its circulation, it brought the words with it, altered a little, and singing like a voice. Like a voice! Suddenly he made a discovery that it actually was a voice, and not his own. It was no longer the blood singing in his veins, it was someone singing outside the window. The sound began faintly and far away, up above the trees, then it came gradually nearer, only to die away again, almost to a whisper. If it was not the voice of the governess, he could only say it was a very good imitation of it. The words forming out of the empty air rose and fell with the wind, and taking his thoughts flung them in a stream through the dark sky towards the hidden misty moon. "O misty moon, dear misty moon, the nights are long without thee. The shadows creep across my sleep and fold their wings about me." And another silvery voice, that might have been the voice of a star, took it up faintly, evidently from a much greater distance. O misty moon, sweet misty moon, the stars are dim behind thee, and lo, thy beams swing through my dreams and weave a veil to blind me. The sound of this beautiful voice so delighted Jimbo that he sprang from his bed and rushed to the window, hoping that he might be able to hear it more clearly. But before he got halfway across the room he stopped short, trembling with terror. Underneath his very feet, in the depths of the house, he heard the awful voice he dreaded more than anything else. It roared out the lines with a sound like the rushing of a great river. O misty moon, pale misty moon, thy songs are nightly driven eternally from sky to sky o'er the old grey hills of heaven. And after the voice Jimbo heard a great peal of laughter that seemed to shake the walls of the house and rooted his feet to the floor. It rolled away with thundering echoes into the very bowels of the earth. He just managed to crawl back to his mattress and lie down, when another voice took up the song, but this time in accents so tender that the child felt something within him melt into tears of joy, and he was on the verge of recognizing, for the first time since his accident, the voice of his mother. O misty moon, shy misty moon, whence comes the blush that trembles in sweet disgrace o'er half thy face, when night her stars assembles? But his memory, of course, failed him just as he seemed about to grasp it, and he was left wondering why the sound of that one voice had brought him a moment of radiant happiness in the midst of so much horror and pain. Meanwhile the answering voices went on, each time different and in new directions, but the next verse somehow brought back to him all the terror he had felt in his flight over the sea, when the sound of the hissing waters had reached his ear through the carpet of fog. O misty moon, persuasive moon, earth's tides are ever rising. By the awful grace of thy weird white face, leap the seas to thy enticing. Then followed the voice that had started the horrid song. This time he was sure it was not Miss Lake's voice, but only a very clever imitation of it. Moreover, it again ended in a shriek of laughter that froze his blood. O misty moon, deceiving moon, thy silvery glance brings sadness. Who flies to thee from land or sea shall end his days in madness. Other voices began to laugh and sing, but Jimbo stopped his ears, for he simply could not bear any more. He felt certain too that these strange words to the moon had all been part of a trap, a device to draw him to the window. He shuddered to think how nearly he had fallen into it, and determined to lie on the bed and wait till he heard his companion calling, and knew beyond all doubt that it was she. But the night passed away and the dawn came, and no voice had called him forth to the last flight. Hitherto in all his experiences there had been only one absolute certainty, the appearance of the governess with the morning light. But this time sunrise came, and the clouds cleared away, and the sweet smells of field and air stole into the little room, yet without any sign of the governess. The hours passed, and she did not come, till finally he realized she was not coming at all, and he would have to spend the whole day alone. Something had happened to prevent her, or else it was all part of her mysterious plan. He did not know, and all he could do was to wait and wonder and hope. All day he lay and waited, and all day long he was alone. The trapdoor never once moved.